Today, if you eat something wrong, at worst you will experience nausea. Maybe you will throw up. You might even spend a bad night in the toilet. This can be a very annoying and uncomfortable situation, but it is almost never fatal. The next day you get up. You drink your coffee and you continue your life. For a person living in ancient times, the situation was completely different and serious than this. Hunting and eating the wrong animal could really kill you. This situation was not a misfortune experienced sometimes, or rarely. It was a highly predictable form of death that happened over and over again in completely different continents and cultures of the world. One category of meat was much more dangerous than all other options in nature: predator meat. That is the meat of creatures located at the very top of the food chain. Hunting predators like lions, wolves, polar bears, and big cats was already incredibly dangerous in itself. But the real big disaster started right after successfully hunting these powerful creatures. Here in this video, we will talk exactly about this vital topic. What exactly happened when ancient people made this mistake? Why did some lose their lives just a few hours after eating this meat? And how did not eating predator meat become one of the most important survival rules of human history? Let us start with the most famous example known throughout history: polar bear liver. Polar explorers and ancient Arctic peoples who lived long before them learned this truth by having very bitter experiences. Eating the liver of a polar bear could kill you in just a few hours, and this deadly reason was vitamin A. Polar bears are located at the very top of the food chain in the Arctic region, thanks to every seal the bear eats and every fish that seal ate before. The vitamin A in all this chain constantly accumulates and concentrates as it goes upwards. When it reaches the liver, the concentration becomes so extreme that even a single meal loads dozens of times more vitamin A than the human body can handle. The symptoms started extremely fast: severe headache, unstoppable vomiting, and the skin literally peeling off layer by layer. And in extreme cases, the process resulted in death within a day. Think about it for a second. After starving in the freezing cold for months, you manage to hunt a massive animal. You celebrate with great joy. You share the liver of the prey with your friends, and just a few hours later, half of the group starts writhing on the ground in pain. Arctic indigenous communities engraved this deadly lesson into their minds so well that strictly staying away from the liver of predatory animals turned into an unwritten law, passed down from generation to generation for ages, long before anyone understood the complex chemistry behind this. This vital information was learned not in test tubes, but through the bodies of people who died tragically. Now let us talk about something almost no one knows: trichinosis. This condition is an extremely dangerous parasitic infection caused by microscopic worms secretly living in the muscle tissues of carnivorous and omnivorous animals. When creatures like wolves, bears, and wild boars eat a predator, an infected prey, the parasite settles in its muscle tissue and manages to survive alive. And later, when a human consumes the meat of this predator without cooking it well enough, the parasite makes a direct and straight transition into the human body. Once these parasites enter the human body, they can cause extremely severe muscle pains and suddenly rising fever. And in much more serious cases, the process progresses to heart and lung complications that can directly yield fatal results. And the most terrifying part of the situation is this: symptoms sometimes appeared weeks later. So when a person got sick, they could never even be sure which meat they ate caused it. Today, archaeological and anthropological evidence clearly shows that trichinosis disease was an extremely real and constantly recurring vital danger for ancient communities that hunted and consumed carnivorous animals. This risk increased especially in freezing cold climates, where cooking the meat less was a great necessity. On a winter day when wood shortage was experienced, you might not find a fire to cook the meat for a long time, and this desperate choice you made just to survive could kill you. Here is the thing that makes this picture even worse. Herbivorous animals rarely carry this parasite in a concentration that would threaten humans. However, predators accumulate and concentrate this deadly risk in their bodies because they constantly eat other animals that might already be infected like themselves. Therefore, while eating an herbivorous animal in the ancient world was a relatively safe choice, consuming a carnivorous animal was literally throwing dice with your own life. This single fact might be one of the biggest reasons why ancient people stayed away from predator meat in a completely instinctive way, even in cultures completely disconnected from each other. This situation was not a simple superstition or a baseless fear. On the contrary, it was a clear survival mathematics, written with blood and heavy prices paid for generations. Now let us talk about something even more sneaky and dangerous: the bioaccumulation of toxins. This concept goes far beyond just vitamin A overload or deadly parasites. In many ecosystems, toxins, heavy metals, and all other harmful compounds accumulate as they go up in the food chain. For example, a very small amount of toxin found in a plant turns into a slightly larger concentration in an herbivorous animal feeding on that plant, and in a predator that hunts and eats this herbivore, the situation becomes much bigger, much more concentrated, and reaches much more dangerous levels. In science, this is called biomagnification. Predators standing at the very top of the food chain become a living and walking concentration point for all kinds of dangerous substances absorbed by the entire ecosystem below them. Modern science clearly confirms that this frightening process happens the exact same way today as well. We can see this clearly, especially in the high mercury accumulation in the tissues of massive ocean predators like sharks and tunas. Even today, doctors tell pregnant women not to consume predatory fishes of certain sizes too much. This is exactly why. But people in ancient times were probably experiencing the land version of this same phenomenon. Moreover, without having any knowledge about chemistry or biology, they had to learn this truth only through a repeating, painful, and costly trial and error. Now there is an important question to be asked at this point. If predator meat was this dangerous, why did ancient people continue to try it knowingly? The answer to this question is desperation. In times of famine during freezing winter months or in unsuccessful hunts, predatory animals were sometimes the only food source left in their hands. A group of people tested with hunger were left alone with a choice at that moment: to take all the deadly risks of predator meat or to risk inevitably starving to death while waiting to find a safer prey. Some groups had to take this great risk to survive. Archaeological evidence, when combined with observations in indigenous cultures documented later, reveals an extremely striking truth. When predator meat had to be eaten, extremely comprehensive and meticulous preparation methods were used to minimize these deadly risks. Extremely long cooking times applied to clear the meat of parasites, specifically removing and throwing away organs like the liver, which is a vitamin A depot. Long-term drying or smoking processes done to completely destroy parasites and break the toxin concentration were some of them. All these processes were not randomly emerged cultural habits or superstitious rules. These were actual survival techniques refined by heavy trials experienced for countless generations. Errors resulting in disaster and unfortunately countless deaths. While every family and every clan passed these vital rules to their children from generation to generation, they were actually also passing on the bitter story of someone who made this mistake and lost their life in the past in the background. There is also a deeper evolutionary explanation behind this, regarding why humans developed an instinctive disgust towards predator meat. Researchers examining taste and smell preferences in different cultures state that predator meat generally has a strong and unpleasant smell and taste due to its high fat content and diet. Some anthropologists argue that this instinctive disgust might have evolved specifically to keep ancient humans away from meat that is statistically highly likely to be more dangerous. In other words, disgust. It could have been a survival mechanism long before humans understood the reason for it, like the body already knowing something the brain does not know. Even today in some cultures there is an unshakable and strong taboo against the meat of predatory animals. And the true origin of this taboo is probably based on countless silent death cases experienced thousands of years ago. Over time, these bitter experiences were passed down from generation to generation as a sacred rule that everyone obeyed even though no one knew the scientific reason behind it. So the next time someone comes out and says that ancient people ate whatever came their way to survive, definitely remember this truth. Throughout human history, surviving was not about consuming everything that came your way. On the contrary, it was about learning exactly what not to eat through trial and error, where terrible prices were generally paid. Every single rule, every single taboo, and every instinctive disgust we feel towards certain foods today highly likely started as a vital lesson written by the silent deaths of people who lived long before us. This is exactly why if you get disgusted or do not like a food on your plate today, maybe you are reliving that deep evolutionary instinct that saved the life of one of your ancestors thousands of years ago. I hope you liked this video I prepared because the research behind it really took a very long time of mine. If you like this kind of deep and informative content, you can also watch them with pleasure by clicking on the other videos appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your support. See you in the next video.